Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. Alright, hi, this is Attican and welcome to another Railway Empire video. This is part 4 and our final part as we look at Great Britain and Ireland in our pursuit of a perfect score. And just to give you a recap, we have set up passenger mail lines all around the place. So we've got passenger mail lines everywhere. It's giving us a tremendous economy. We're making a lot of money, and we've done great city growth because we have 4 two-city clusters set up, one between Leeds and Hull, one between Liverpool and Manchester, one between Wrexham and Birmingham, and one down here right there between Oxford and London. And all 4 are doing fine. We actually need to do some work on Hull. That Leeds Hull one's a little weak and could use some love, but be that as it may, everything's going beautifully, and we've gotten through. There are 2 really tough tasks in this one to get a perfect score, and I'm assuming if they're tough to make perfect, they're probably tougher on you if you're just trying to get through the scenario and finish it. First one is the Tweed. You have to produce 60 units of Tweed quickly, and that means you have to be manufacturing it, so you have to own an industry and you've got to supply that industry, and in order to make it really worthwhile, you need to have that industry have some either be able to dump it into a warehouse or create demand. And we did that by putting the industry in Birmingham, and then we put, as soon as Birmingham hit 55,000, we went over to Liverpool and put in a tailor, which increased the demand for the Tweed. So that was the key for the Tweed. So we got that done. Then the second hardest thing is growing London. When you have the opportunity, you need to get to London as quickly as you can and get some sort of city growth set up, whatever system you use. I chose to use another 2-city cluster, Oxford to London, and with a pass-through warehouse. And that is working beautifully. And right now we're just working through making sure that London continues to grow, watching for problems, all the normal things you do, monitoring the game. And as London grows, every time we feel good about it, we go off and work on something else. Like we'll go out and finish off. I really haven't finished off the Wrexham Birmingham 2-city cluster, just yet. And we'll go off and do that, and we just kind of foray off and work on something and go back and check London. If we're happy, go on. And there you can see a tremendous storm is hitting Manchester, just zapping all of our trains right there. So things are grinding to a halt right in that area for a while. That's quite the storm. But at any rate, in this video, I don't want to go through all the details. There's 3 more hours of gameplay, and I'm not up to it. I'm not up to talking over 3 hours of video. I don't think you need to watch it either. What I do want to do is just cover the main things that you have to think about to make sure that you can get this done. So follow those first 3, and if you do, you'll be in great shape. And from here on out, I'm just going to give you a few things to watch for to make sure that you can finish and play this scenario successfully. So hopefully you were able to notice all the activity there. We're waiting on London to grow, but the lesson here is when you have something like that where you're waiting on this one task to finish and you're just watching it finish, don't do that. Don't watch it finish. Go do something else. All that money we have, go spend it. Go invest it in something else. Continue to expand. Constantly build and expand. Bring new cities into your network. bring in new goods, set up new clusters, whatever it is. Now, in this case, we're actually finishing off that Birmingham to Wrexham two-city cluster. I probably misspoke in the early part of this video. It's set up in the sense that they're connected, but it really wasn't set up at all with the warehouse and all the good stuff that needs to be done. So this is going through the process of getting that set up. And I'm going to skip through this as well. Again, you can see all kinds of videos on setting up a two-city cluster with a pass-through warehouse, which is just all this is. But so let's move ahead. But there's the main thing here I wanted to say is, don't just sit and watch. And I know I used to be guilty of that a lot. I would just sit there and get mesmerized and just watch the trains or watch the, watch my task slowly get finished. And don't do that. Make sure that you've done everything you can do to get that task done, and go work on something else and keep expanding and keep creating the possibility of making more and more money. That's what it's all about. That's how you prepare yourself for whatever's coming next, by continuing to grow and expand your business. Let's take a little look right here. We're still setting up that Wrexham Birmingham two-city cluster, but I did want to kind of show this track building from this fishery, because that just looks awful, doesn't it? Those mountains, all that water. But I want to show you what I did to keep it from being a ridiculously expensive thing or have a ridiculous amount of slope. The key is to gradually go up and get on one of those elevations, and then ride that elevation around the ridge. So once we pick kind of the basic elevation where our track's going to go, we just kind of ride it around the ridge and turn that corner, keeping at that same elevation. So we don't go up or down until we really need to. Of course, eventually we've got to come down off that altitude and get back down to Mother Earth, so to speak. But if we do it carefully and wait till we've got a good place to go out and come down gradually like this, see, we're just kind of slowly working our way down. That track is not horribly expensive, and you can lay some pretty nice track on some pretty tough terrain like that. So this is that fish down there that's what would that be, southwest of Wrexham. And see, this is so weird for me. I've actually, because that was a tough build, I actually flipped the camera view around so that I could see it from a different angle. And someone had mentioned to me, I should go look up who it was. Someone had mentioned to me in a comment that I should actually drive the trains on the left-hand side, since this is Great Britain and Ireland, and for full immersion, let's go on the left-hand side. And I told him that I'm not sure I can do that. I'm not sure I'm smart enough to drive on the left-hand side. I have a problem with seeing things in spatial perspective. I have to keep looking the same way at a map, or I get confused. So you'll see me here. I flipped it around so I could see that side of the mountain and see what I was doing. And you notice that's only like 180-some thousand, and that goes all the way down there. That's a pretty nice piece of track right there for $180,000, or pounds rather. Excuse me. Let's do our immersion, and all it took was some care to go keep that altitude, run around that cliff on the same altitude, and then gradually decline. To go back down to off the mountain. So after that's done, then I'll flip this thing right back around to the way I'm used to looking at it, because if I don't, I will be confused the whole time. I will have a hard time finding things. I won't recognize how things are set up. It's just the way I am. So I don't think I could play on the left-hand side, and I'm going to try. And there's that defect you get sometimes when you're trying to do the double crosses like that, where you're taking two tracks and crossing two tracks. You'll get a gap in the track often. The only way you can really see it is in track building mode. So you have to kind of delete a portion and then rebuild it in order to get it to come together correctly. So after we did that, there we go. There, it's all gone. All right, so let's go back to moving ahead. And you will see the screen flip right back around to the way we've been looking at it the rest of the game. All right, so I'm continually checking London, and I noticed that it could use milk and it could use dairy. So we're going to kind of kill two birds with one stone here, and we're going to go up there to Cambridge, which is nearby, the next city up to the north, and we're going to buy the business that's in there, knock it down, and replace it with a dairy, because there's milk very near to Cambridge. So what we're going to do then is set up a situation where we have a warehouse connected to both Cambridge and the milk, and we'll set up a delivery from that warehouse into London, and that will give London both milk and dairy. So we just run several trains into London from this warehouse, and they'll pick up milk and or the dairy products created by Cambridge, whichever's needed and available, and we will have a nice the ability to send London two things it needs, make money off of it, make money off of our dairy industry up there in Cambridge, and Cambridge was just kind of sitting there not doing anything from a city growth point of view. So putting a dairy in there is a perfectly fine thing to do, and it takes advantage of that nearby milk and gives London two products it needs. All right, so we're in 1835, started in 1830, and just now have decided, okay, enough of this replacing the trains all the time. I'm getting a little tired of it. I mean, it works beautifully, but I'm getting tired of it. So what I'm doing here, we're going to set up maintenance throughout the system, because we got so much money now. Look at this, 19 million. I just literally cannot build fast enough to spend all the money that's coming in. So we're going to go out and set up maintenance on all of our trains. I also did this to time out with, waited until we had pretty good trains. In other words, in this time period, the Firefly for Express, which you get reasonably early, and then decent freight train, so with some speed. I wouldn't do this if we were still running rockets, for example. But just wanted to go in and put these maintenance buildings, go put them all over the place, even the rural stations. And the reason being that we want to spread the maintenance out. We don't want any, one or two stations having to do maintenance for multiple lines. So we're going to spread that maintenance out. We got plenty of funds. We're just going to put maintenance on everything. We'll go through and distribute supply towers all over the place, so that now in the future we won't have to go through and update our stock as often. But we still will, because it's still a good thing to do. It's still a good thing to go out and update them once in a while if you've got the money, and we certainly do. So here we're running Jenny Linn's rather than and we kind of bounce back and forth between the Jenny Lynn and the GSM American. The Jenny Lynn, of course, makes more sense on this map, but and you can see I'm looking for all the situations where we're not getting hitting supply towers and going in and putting those in as well. But again, because you got all this money, it's easy to do, and we're still waiting on that 100,000 for London. And here we see that we've hit our 100,000 in London. So that's the key, one of the two keys, the Tweed and 100,000 in London, and we've managed to get gold in both of those, and that means we're in great shape. And the rest of it's sort of brute force, but I'll walk you through kind of the key things on what's coming up next. And you can see here too, Hull's only at 60-some thousand, so I definitely want to go in there and keep it going. Now we're just some other tasks just finished. Oh, we got a new task and we'd already done it. Connect X cities to your network. So we're already done with that one. Now we got to look at buying somebody out. And what we see there, old Don Lorenzo is worth $96 million. So, but look at what he's running. He's got one line running to one city. So that's his entire enterprise, but he's worth $96 million. So obviously there's a lot of investment capital backing Don Lorenzo and the rest of our opponents here. And what happens with this one is whatever value you are, their computers kind of get started off pretty much matching you. So if we had played this either much more quickly and had less money, or more poorly and had less money, we would be facing opponents that also had less money. They just sort of seem to match, because I've played this one now 1, 2, 3 times all the way through, and this is the third time all the way through, and that's what happens every time. Whatever you look like, that's kind of what your opponents look like, at least 2 of your 3, and particularly the one you need to buy, which is the guy down here. So what we're going to do now is crucial, I think, to making this easy. We're going to make Don Lorenzo have no place to go, no place to hide, baby. There's no place for you to go, Don Lorenzo. So what we're going to do is build out lines, use rapid expansion on steroids, and build 2 stations in each city and connect them with lines to the next city. And we're not even going to run trains. We're not going to do anything. All we care about now is getting 2 stations in every one of these cities so that Don Lorenzo has no place to go. And the thing of it is, of course, you have to be connected to your network on the first station you place before you can place the second station. So we have to run the lines between city to city lines in order to qualify to put the second station in. And if we just put 1 station in, it won't do us any good at all, because Don Lorenzo will just go in there and put the second station in himself, and then he'll have the ability to expand and continue to grow his enterprise. We want to cut him off and limit him to as much as possible within reason. We don't want to spend all our time down here with him, but what we're going to do here, again, we've got the funds, 2 cities in every station, and I'm going to fast forward through this. We'll just go through this and block Don Lorenzo out, and he will not be a problem anymore. Now we're also going to go up here to the north. We finished off the south and blocked it off. We're also going to run lines up here to Middlesbrough, I think it's called, and to Newcastle, and all the way up to Edinburgh, and cut off our northern opponent as well. And there's a point where I just get tired of it. We could have kept right on going all the way up into Scotland, but I just got tired of it after a while. But we'll go up there. We'll run all the way up to Edinburgh, even over to Glasgow. Or Glasgow. Oh, I've forgotten. Is it Glasgow or Glasgow? Oh, I've forgotten already. Sorry, guys. I know you told me, and I've already forgotten. But we're going to connect up the cities going all the way up into Scotland to cut off our northern opponent a little bit. We don't quite take it to the extreme with Don Lorenzo, where we went to every single city down there, but we get a pretty good footprint. All right, so I jumped out to look up a couple of things, and the person who thought I should try driving on the left is named Mega Bobo. I guess that's how you say it, Megaboe. And apparently Mega Bobo is from Belgium, where they also drive the trains on the left-hand side. I'm I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you folks in England, but I can't do it. I just don't think I can. So anyway, sorry about that. And I also looked up the how to say Glasgow, and that's it. It's Glasgow, and I'm counting as the expert here our buddy Fur Fox, who lives near there. So I would assume he's an expert on how to say the name of the town he lives near. So we're going with Glasgow. And he tells me that people who actually live around there actually say Glasgow, as best I can tell. Glasgow. That's an accent I will never have, so we're going to go with Glasgow. So it's drive on the right, and we're going to drive on the right all the way up to Glasgow. Now we've had the task now, a new one added, to send 50 units of steel or boxcars of steel up to Newcastle. So if we look in Newcastle, there's a steel warehouse that creates demand for steel at the rate of 7 per week. So that's terrific. So we're going to take advantage of that task. And there's iron and coal up there between Newcastle and Leeds. And so we're going to pick a city, and it's going to be Leeds, which is the nearest big city we have. We want a big city because what we want to do is put in a steel industry and expand it so that it's really pumping out the steel. So there goes our nice sawmill that we put in, and we're going to replace that sawmill with a steel industry. And we'll put it in there kind of out of the way. And then I have to confess I did a kind of a bad design. I ran the coal and iron into that city station there, and ran the line out from the city station to take goods up to Newcastle so that we could deliver the steel. So I ran an automated line up to Newcastle. And what I really should have done, and actually later on do it just because the coal became a problem, is I put a warehouse above Leeds off to the side so that we could then have it close enough to Leeds to be connected, and then we could run coal and iron into the warehouse and run steel out of the warehouse back up to Leeds. Could have even used the same trains if I wanted to that were carrying the iron ore down. Could have them just run up to Leeds, drop off steel, and then go back and pick up some more iron ore. That would have been a more efficient, much better design. But what I did worked just fine. It took some doing, but I got it all to work. And the basic idea is we bring coal, and we're going to buy the iron ore. We're going to buy the coal mine, and we've already put in the steel industry. And we're going to, as we gather up the money, we're going to just keep upgrading the iron ore, upgrading the coal, upgrading the steel industry. So we'll upgrade the steel industry, then we'll see how much iron and coal does it need. We'll upgrade the coal and iron to match that so that they're producing at least as much as the steel industry needs. And then as money permits, we'll just keep upgrading the steel industry so that we can just pump that steel out to Newcastle. And that will do two things for us: get that task out of the way and keep us on track for our perfect score. But it'll just make us a ton of money, and at the same time, that iron ore will be up making thousands and thousands of dollars a week, and the coal mine will be very profitable, and the steel industry will be very profitable, and all the lines shipping all that stuff will be very profitable. So this is a good deal all around. So let's just move on through this. Now, keep in mind that right now our main task is to buy Don Lorenzo, and he's pretty huge. But if you look at what's happened to him, look at this. He's got Plymouth down there, and he's got like 3 rural businesses coming into Plymouth, and that's it. That's all he can do, because we have doubled up on stations on all the cities down there to the south, and there's nothing the poor fella can do. So what we're going to do now, in order to just really pump up the money and just make it, kind of ridiculous, we're going to now double track these all these lines that we've got between all these cities down here in the south of England. And we are going to run passenger mail lines between every one of them and just start raking in money. So we're going to set up passenger mail lines all through the south of England. And really the reason we're doing this is to get that money coming in so quickly that we'll have no issues buying a company that's going to cost us probably upwards of $100 million to buy him out at this point. So we can see here our steel industry is working great. We're up to 44 out of 50. One or two more trains will come into Newcastle from Leeds, and we'll be done with that task. And we have bought up at this point a couple of chunks of Don Lorenzo. An analyst came along. We grabbed as much as we could by reducing his prices. And we've just been buying him in like 10% chunks now to get the job done on purchasing Don Lorenzo. We finished off all those lines down there to the south, and they are just raking in money. All right, so here we are at our final stock purchase of Don Lorenzo. So we buy those last 8%, and we're going to merge with him and then liquidate everything and take all the cash. So here we are, we got $64 million. We look at Doc, and it's going to cost us $123 million pounds, 123 million pounds to buy out Doc. So we'll target him next. And he's up there to the north of us. Well, maybe we'll look at Beatrix, I don't know, but 123 million. So now we've got two new tasks: to move 90 passengers up to Glasgow and to move 120 units of anything to Edinburgh. So obviously we've got a connection up there, but we need a non-stop connection all the way up to Glasgow from Liverpool. And I looked at this and thought, well, maybe we just buy out Doc first and then do it. But I decided not to wait because I wanted to make sure I got that done quickly and on time. So I just decided to go ahead and build a big, long, expensive line up there and get this task over with. So we'll expand our station in Liverpool, and we'll run a line up there, and we'll just have to kind of jump over some of Doc's track to get up there to Edinburgh, but that's okay. We got 67 million pounds to play with right now. So we can run our track up there to Edinburgh, no problem, from Liverpool. And then we'll just fire off Fireflies, passenger mail only, out of Liverpool till we get several of them going up there, and it won't take very long to take 90 people up to Glasgow. The whole thing with that task, what makes it difficult is you need to make sure you have enough funds that you can build a big, long, expensive line like this that's going to have some tunnels and bridges and some tough terrain and cross over the opponent's track and all that good stuff. But again, if your economy's strong, and ours is rock solid right now, we're just kind of printing money, and that's exactly where you want to be. So we can run this big convoluted line up there and get that task done, and we can go on about our business and think about the Edinburgh task. So we've got some Fireflies running off with passengers up to Glasgow, and it's time to look at Edinburgh. And we've already built that connection from Newcastle to Edinburgh because we were up there kind of cutting off Doc at the pass and trying to get him out of some cities. So we've cut off Edinburgh and decided to use a pass-through warehouse here between Newcastle and Edinburgh to haul some goods up there. And I really messed this up royally. I started running the freight lines. I wanted to do freight and I wanted to do passenger and mail only. And I started running the freight lines directly without really having anything in there in the warehouse. So it's kind of a waste of time, frankly. I don't know. I'm not sure where. I really was getting tired at this point. I was kidding. I had played this in like the final bit in a 3-hour marathon. I just didn't have enough sense to quit, and I just got almost obsessed with finishing it. So I think my brain did at this point. But at any rate, no excuse. I was just running a bunch of trains up there carrying nothing. But then, once I go ahead and set up the passenger and mail line directly to Edinburgh out of Newcastle, then the task just, boom, it's over with before you know it. So those two tasks are not difficult. The only thing that's tricky about them is, as I said before, you have to have your basic economy in great shape so that you can afford to do this. As long as you can afford to do this, then it is absolutely not an issue. So now we've finished those two off, and we've got 3 tasks left. We have to eliminate all of our competitors. We have to connect to 15 cities of at least a population of 60,000 and 8 cities of at least a population of 120,000. Well, the good news is we've got 4 2-city clusters, so that's where we're going to look for our 120. Right now, 4 of the 8 are at that size. And we've got 9 of 15 at a population of 60,000. So what we're going to do here is look to see, we're going to work on first getting rid of our competitors. So we're going to kind of buy them out. We've got enough to get rid of Beatrix. It did not really take that long. But you see there, Doc has bought some of Beatrix's stock. So what we're going to have to do is pay him a little bonus. He gets a 50% bump on his stock as profit. We're going to have to pay a little extra for those final 8%, and then we can put Beatrix out of her misery, and then we'll work on Doc. And I think I said I was going to do Doc first earlier, but obviously I kind of changed my mind because Beatrix was a little bit easier to target. So let's just move right ahead, and we'll get rid of those 2 and work on those city connections. I'll show you what we did to get the 15 cities of 60,000. Now here we go. We're finally at a point where we've bought out Beatrix, or at least we can afford to pay Doc his little bonus. So we liquidate her and take the cash. Now we've got 22 million to play with, and we've got 9 out of 15 cities that we're connected to. And So we've got to look at the timing of it. We want to probably get those 9 out of 15 done first, because dock is still going to take a lot of money. It'll take us a little while to accumulate that kind of money. So we throw a museum in Glasgow, although Glasgow's actually already 60, so that's not the big deal. Then we've got these two here, Dumfries and Carlisle. Dumfries is 76 and Carlisle is 70 something. So if we can connect to those two, there's two more for our little set right there. So what we're going to do is run a line. We're just going to, right here, we're just going to put a station in Carlisle and just run a little temporary little jog over there to hook into our passenger mail line that's running between Liverpool and Glasgow. And actually did end up setting up a little passenger mail line between Carlisle and Liverpool. Then we'll go over to Dumfries, put a station in there, but it's real clumsy to deal with, so I basically just made a connection and kind of let it ride. Now we started that two-city cluster between Newcastle and Edinburgh, which is also a beer meat deal. So why not finish that off and let those two cities grow, because we and really when you have a two-city cluster and you're talking about getting up to 60,000, a two-city cluster with a proper price through warehouse, it's going to get to 60,000 very, very easily. So that's what we're doing here. And you'll notice the biggest thing I goofed up was putting that warehouse over there on the East Coast. It's so silly. It should have been over to the right, or to the left rather, over to the west, because that's where almost everything's coming from. Actually, it's where everything's coming from. So I think that was a matter of putting it in after the passenger mail line. Notice all those X's there. That's where I'm stupidly running those trains without any goods in the warehouse, so nothing was happening. All right, so we're down to just dock. And what do we need to buy? So we're starting to buy him in little chunks whenever we can. But at any rate, we're going to set up that two-city cluster, Edinburgh to Newcastle. That'll be two more of our cities to hit those 15 cities that we need for a population of 60,000. We went on up and hooked up to Dundee because that one has grown as well. But we we really at this point need three more, but we've got one growing. I think it's Edinburgh is growing, but we need at least a couple more. There are a couple over here in Ireland. So here's where I did the kind of the classic, I just want to get this over with. So I built this big old line across the channel. I don't know how in the world people in 1837 could build a bridge like that, but we built a bridge across the channel, or whatever that's called up there, over to Ireland, and we're running it all the way over to Ireland, and we're trying to hook up to Sligo, which is right there in the middle of our screen. And then we'll go from Sligo, I think it's to Dublin, I'm not sure, but there's one other city that Beatrix has been nice enough to grow for us. So we're going to make sure that we can hook up to those two cities, and when we do, that will get the job done for us, and we'll have our 15 cities. So not overly proud of this piece of it, because I'm really going to build this big expensive track, a giant bridge, and then once it works, delete it and act like it never happened. So there's the other one. It is Dublin, and we're going to go from Dublin over to Sligo, and that will give us our two cities we need over there. And once we make this connection, and just kind of controlling the cost without worrying about it too much, because again, it is a throwaway. And money really is no longer a terrible problem. So I'm not being too careful about passing those lakes. And there we go. There we got our 15 cities. So as soon as we get that, then the bulldozer comes out, and I say goodbye to Ireland. And we go back over to England and Scotland and start working on our 8 large cities at 120. And of course, we have 4 2-city clusters, so you can imagine that's not going to be too bad. And the other thing, of course, I forgot, we still have to buy out Dock and finish that off. So you can see here we've got 5 out of 8. We need 3 more. So literally what I did, well, first of all, I took advantage of these spies and made sure I got benefit out of them while I still have an opponent. And we're still buying out Dock in chunks. We're there. We're at 72%. We're almost there on buying out Dock. And again, what I do for the get those 8 large cities is I go to the ones that aren't quite there, and I say, okay, what do you need? See London's at 119,000. It's just teasing me, but it's not getting a steady supply of fish because London and Oxford are getting so big that we're not getting enough fish supplied. So what I'm going to do here is run fish directly into London. And this is the technique I used all through the rest of this, is just simply went to each one that's not quite there and figured out what does it need, what can I give it, and how am I going to get it to it. And I just kept supplying it. I sent cement and fish to London and just went around the map. And the one that needed the most work was Hull because it had kind of lagged behind, but it was easy to set up and just keep stuff going in there. So that's all it took. In other words, because we had the 4 2-city clusters, we were already ready to get 120. They just took a little extra work to really make them work. But once we got that done, then we were good. And see here, I even put in another warehouse to give me an easy place to deliver the goods into London from over there to the east and the north. So let's just wrap it up here and move ahead and see how we did. So we're just about the end. We're watching Hull grow. It's at 117,000 and growing nicely. We've got a promoter came along to help us out. So that sped things up. We would have made it anyway, but the promoters made us grow about 1,000 a day, it seemed like. So that was awesome. And now we get our end game, and we have president, 5 out of 5 tasks, 20 out of 20 rating, a 60 score. Took us, what was that? 8 years plus, 8 years, 8 months, but not bad. Again, a perfect score on Transport Revolution. I hope you saw something there that can help your game. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.